How's it going? Dave here, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about how to create a modal chord progression. So it'd be useful if you knew about modes already. So if you want to check out my crash course on modes, then do that there. But if you already know what modes are, how they work, then this video is going to be great for you. So first of all, before we learn how to write a modal chord progression, let's talk quickly about how a standard major or minor chord progression is formed. In our major scale, we've got the notes. Let's take in the case of C, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. And some of these notes are called stable notes. That's C, E, and G. And these notes are notes that sound at home and resolved. They're a good choice to end the melody on because they're part of that C major triad. Then the other notes, the D, F, A, and B, these are called active notes. And these active notes want to resolve somewhere. So the B wants to resolve up to the C, the A wants to resolve down to the G, the F wants to resolve down to the E, and the D wants to resolve either to the E or the C. The ones that are a semitone apart are particularly pleasing to listen to, so F going down to E and B going up to C. We can build chords on every single one of these notes. So we have C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. And from these chords we can create chord progressions. And in a major key, for example, the purpose of everything is to go away from the tonic but eventually come back to the tonic. So we're going to start on C, for example, and build tension and finish back on C again. This whole concept is called functional harmony. With functional harmony, each chord has a function. So there are three functions: tonic, subdominant, and dominant, and each one of these chords fits into one of these sections. So the tonic chords are the chords that sound at home, sound nice and settled and resolved, and they are C major, E minor, and A minor, chords 1, 3, and 6. Then our subdominant chords add a little bit of tension to the chord progression, take us on a bit of a journey, and that's because they have the note F, which is an active note that wants to resolve down to E. And those chords are D minor and F. And then we have dominant chords, which also contain the F, but they also contain the note B as well. And these chords are chords 5 and 7, your G and B diminished. And I said they have the F and the B, which are a tritone apart, which create extra tension, but that both of them want to resolve a semitone apart. So B wants to resolve to C and F wants to resolve to E, and that creates even more tension, and we land back on our tonic chord. So as you can see, that tonic chord in a major key or even in a minor key has some pull to it. Everything that goes away from it wants to lead back to it again. Now, this is not exactly the case when we are using modes, and that's why it's important to know the difference between functional harmony and what we're going to call modal harmony. So let's just quickly analyze the modes. We have 7 modes, major scale being Ionian, the minor scale being Aeolian, and then the other 5 being Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, and Locrian. Now, each one of these particular modes has a specific characteristic note. For example, Dorian, D Dorian has a major 6. E Phrygian has the flat 2nd. F Lydian has the sharp 4th. G Mixolydian has the flat 7th. And B Locrian has the flat 5th. And this note helps the mode sound like the mode. So what we want to do is, when we're playing our chord that our modal tonic is built off, if we can add that specific characteristic note into the chord, then you're already going to get a quite cool modal sound. So for example, D Dorian, if I add that major 6 into our minor chord, we get a D minor 6. And it's already sounding like Dorian just by playing one chord. Same thing with E Phrygian. If I was to add that flat 2nd into a standard E minor chord, so E minor by E minor with the added flat 9, we're already sounding like Phrygian just by playing one chord. Same with F. If I can add that B, our sharp 4th, into the F major chord, then we're already going to sound like Lydian. And then with the G Mixolydian scale, all I have to do is play a dominant chord because you've got that flat 7 to achieve a Dorian sound. With B, B Locrian, we are just playing a diminished chord because that has the flat 5th in there. If we can add the flat 2nd in as well, that will add to the Locrian sound. Just like that. So we're already sounding quite modal just by playing one chord. I know you want to make progressions and you want to switch between chords, so let's talk about that. Now we have to be very particular about our chord choices when we're switching to other chords in a modal chord progression. This is because if we use one of those dominant chords, so for example G7 or B diminished, then we run the risk of that F and B in those chords, our listener is going to want to hear that resolve to a tonic chord, so to like C major or A minor, something like that. So we want to try and minimize the use of those two chords in whichever mode we're playing. And because functional harmony really doesn't apply with modes, we have to take a completely different approach to writing chords. We don't build chord progressions with the mindset of building tension and resolving that tension. Each particular chord kind of floats in its own kind of space, and kind of you just pull things back to the tonic. It's nothing draws you back to the tonic, if you know what I'm saying there. In every mode there are specific chords that take you away from that tonic, and those would be chords 2, 4, 5 and 7. That's because chords 1, 3 and 6 all have at least 2 notes of your major, minor, diminished triad. So we want to try and use either chords 2, 4, 5 or 7 when we're moving away from our tonic chord in our particular mode. So if we're playing in D Dorian, again we'll use D Dorian as the example. We could use chord 2, which is E minor. Chord 4 is G major. Now you can use a G major because it doesn't contain that tritone. If we were to play a G7, you hear like wants to resolve back to C. And then for chord 5, we could play A minor as well. Or we could play C major. But what I've found particularly is that chords 2 and 7 are the best ones to use. If we just move up a step and then back to our tonic chord, and if we move down a step and back to our tonic chord. And what we really want to do is really emphasize that tonic chord. That's a really important step. You really want to spend the vast majority of the time on your tonic chord. So on this D, if we're playing in Dorian, then maybe just quickly go back to C or to E minor. You want to make sure you're adding that characteristic note in as much as possible. So if we can try and incorporate that into maybe our C major, so play a C major 7, because the major 7 is the characteristic note of our D Dorian, then you're sorted and your chord progression is going to sound very modal. So let's just recap all the steps for writing a modal chord progression. So you want to stay on the tonic as much as possible. You want to convince your listener that your tonic is the tonic and you're not moving into a tonal kind of sounding chord progression. You want to try and avoid using those chords that contain that tritone, so chords 5 and 7 of your major key. So in the case of C major, G, 7 and B diminished. You want to avoid those chords. You want to target your characteristic note of your mode. So for example in Dorian it's the major 6, Phrygian's the flat 2nd, Lydian's the sharp 4th, Mixolydian is the flat 7th and Locrian is the flat 5th. If you're moving to another chord in your modal chord progression, try and make it one of those chords that move away from your tonic, so chord 2, 4, 5 or 7. But especially chords 2 and 7, I find those to work the best. So that's how you write a modal chord progression. And if you enjoyed the video and got a lot out of it, please click like, let me know what you thought in the comments, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so that every time I release a new video, you're notified. Also, if you want to dive deeper into chord progressions and learn to create some really awesome major and minor chord progressions, head down to the description and for absolutely free, you can grab the first 2 chapters of my book, Chord Charisma. And in those first 2 chapters, you'll learn the tonic, subdominant and dominant functions, and then you'll learn how to add 7ths, 9ths, 11ths and 13ths to your chords, as well as 6ths and other interesting variations to make your chord progressions sound jazzier and more sophisticated. All the chord shapes are there, so you don't have to kind of figure them out. So that's free for you, so make sure you go and check that out, and I will see you in the next video. See you later.